A powerful storm is coming. This is not a storm of wind or rain, but one of invisible energy hurtling through space. It comes from our own sun, 93 million miles away. A single powerful solar event has the potential to plunge vast regions of our planet into darkness, not for hours or days, but for weeks, months, or even years. We often worry about threats we can see, like aging infrastructure or physical attacks on our power systems. We spend billions upgrading our terrestrial networks, thinking the danger lies beneath our feet. But the greatest, most widespread threat to our modern way of life comes from the sky above, a silent electromagnetic tempest. Most people think power failures come from old wires or bad planning. The real threat is much bigger, and it's coming from space. Solar flares can trigger geomagnetic storms. These storms induce electric currents in long power lines. Transformers overheat, protection systems fail. The Carrington event of 1859 offers a stark warning from history. Back then, a massive solar storm slammed into Earth. It was so powerful that it set telegraph offices on fire and allowed operators to send messages even after disconnecting their batteries. Auroras, the northern lights, were seen as far south as the Caribbean. In an age powered by steam and muscle, the impact was a curiosity. If a storm of that magnitude were to strike today, the consequences would be catastrophic. Our entire world, from a simple light bulb to the complex financial markets, runs on the fragile and deeply interconnected electrical grid. We have built a civilization that is exquisitely dependent on electricity. It pumps our water, preserves our food, runs our hospitals, connects our communications. Major solar storms are a natural part of our sun's cycle. The question is not if, but when, and whether we will be ready. Even a brand new grid remains vulnerable. Long-distance transmission lines act like giant antennas. You can't fully insulate them from induction. The currents are not being introduced by something touching the wire. The energy is induced within the conductor by the fluctuating magnetic field. The fundamental laws of electromagnetism are at work, turning a network for power delivery into a network for power disruption. Rebuilding the grid as it is, even brand new, is like building a taller lightning rod and hoping it won't get struck. The core problem is the grid's centralized nature and its sprawling reach. Efficient under normal conditions, tragically fragile when a widespread geomagnetic storm hits. The very scale that gives our grid its reach also gives it its greatest weakness. A different approach is needed. The longer the line, the more energy it can collect. Our long, continuous metal lines are perfect pathways for geomagnetically induced currents. Induced DC forces transformer cores to saturate and overheat. These massive units are custom-built, weigh hundreds of tons, and can take more than a year to replace. The domino effect, how the grid falls apart. Our grid is a single synchronized machine. Every generator must spin in harmony at a precise frequency. This frequency is the grid's heartbeat. Small fluctuations are normal. Big shocks trigger chaos. When a solar storm takes transformers offline, generation or transmission capacity drops. In one area, demand exceeds supply and frequency falls. Elsewhere, power can't be carried away, and frequency spikes. Automatic relays trip to protect equipment, like circuit breakers on a continental scale. That isolation removes more plants and communities, worsening the imbalance on what remains. A cascading failure ripples outward in minutes, turning a regional problem into a continent-wide blackout. The grid, designed as one unified whole, breaks apart in an uncontrolled, chaotic collapse. Stability collapses before operators can react. The solution isn't total insulation, it's reducing exposure, shorter lines, local generation, decentralized microgrids, move from a centralized monolith to a decentralized network of self-sufficient neighborhoods. Generate, store, and use power close to home, reducing reliance on long-distance transmission. Shorter lines pick up far less geomagnetically induced current. Microgrids can disconnect instantly. They isolate damage. They keep critical systems running. A hospital microgrid blends solar, storage, and efficient backup generation, selling excess in calm, islanding in crisis. Smart protection detects instability and opens switches in milliseconds. Data centers and critical facilities are prime candidates to island and ride through. Instead of total collapse, countless islands of power can remain operational. Recovery shifts from a black start to stitching together stable islands. Faster, safer, more controlled. Communities keep water, communications, and shelters powered during the storm's worst hours. The power grid of the future will look very different from the one we have today. Less brittle, top-down perfection, more resilient, bottom-up design. Not unbreakable, but able to break apart gracefully and be put back together quickly. Fewer long-distance dependencies, more local energy, smarter protection systems. These local networks will be smart, equipped to react instantly to threats. Prioritize resilience alongside efficiency. Empower communities to build local energy resources. Solar storms are inevitable. Total failure is not. The future grid survives by breaking itself into smaller, smarter pieces. We can build a future where the lights stay on, not because the storm never came, but because we were ready when it did. Would you trust a decentralized grid in your city? The same way a resilient grid buys us time, forecasting gives us a head start. To prepare, we first have to read the star that powers everything. Every 11 years, the sun breathes in and out. Its magnetic field flips. Sunspots multiply, sunspots fade. More spots mean more stress in the sun's tangled magnetism. Think of them as knots on a glowing ocean, dark islands where magnetic fields twist and store energy. Sometimes that energy lets go. A solar flare flashes in minutes. A coronal mass ejection lifts away like a slow-motion tide of plasma and magnetic field. 1 billion tons of charged particles hurled into space. Most miss us, a few don't. When they're aimed our way, their magnetic orientation decides the outcome. If it locks onto Earth's field just right, the doors open, currents surge, systems strain, so we watch. NASA's SDO stares at the sun in many wavelengths. SOHO and other coronagraphs block the sun's disk to catch CMEs unfurling as white halos. Radio telescopes and antenna arrays listen for crackle. Analysts track sunspot growth. Analysts map magnetic fields. Analysts run trajectory models. Forecasting space weather is part art. Forecasting space weather is part physics. NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center. NASA, ESA, international partners, imagery, magnetograms, WSA, Enlil, and similar models. When a flare erupts, we know within minutes. When a CME launches, we estimate arrival, 15 to 72 hours, based on speed, based on direction. Gatekeepers at L1, DS CoVR, ACE, parked 1,000,000 miles sunward. They taste the solar wind before we do. Speed, density, the crucial magnetic turn. Those final numbers give us tens of minutes to refine the call. A glancing blow, a direct hit with southward fields that couple strongly to Earth. Indices and alerts measure the story. The KP scale, G-scale warnings, auroral ovals swelling across the poles. Above, Earth's magnetosphere flexes, a shield rippling. Below, operators shift loads, island microgrids. Operators ride through the impact. Forecasts won't stop a storm. But they let resilience move first. Protect, isolate, reroute, recover. That's the pact. Smarter grids on the ground, smarter eyes in space. Solar Cycle 25 is rising. More spots, more flares, more opportunities to practice what we've built. The sun is speaking, we're learning to listen. Early enough to keep the lights on when the sky begins to dance. We forecast the storm. Now we trace the links it pulls. Power is the first domino. At night, the city glows. Each window a promise delivered by the grid. Pumps need power. Reservoir levels fall on gravity alone. Pressure drops. Firefighting weakens. Wastewater backs up when lift stations stall. Pipelines push with powered compressors. Terminals meter and load with powered racks. No power, no movement. Even diesel for generators waits on powered pumps. ICUs are islands of light. Generators hum, but they drink fuel. They need cooling. They need maintenance staff to arrive through dark streets, oxygen systems, monitors, ventilators, all counting hours of autonomy. Towers carry batteries for a few hours. Switch rooms run on generators and chilled air. Fiber landing stations run on generators and chilled air. Cooling fails. Capacity throttles. Packets drop. Calls jam. Data slows. Alerts arrive late. ATMs. Card readers. Clearinghouses. All ride on power and telecom. When one stumbles, the other trips. Cash lines form. Point of sale goes silent. Markets widen spreads, then pause. Rail control rooms, crossing arms. Interlocks. Traffic lights guide intersections, tunnel fans, bridge lifts, airport beacons, fuel hydrants. The schedule is electrical before it is mechanical. Data centers promise uptime. They have layers, UPS, generators, fuel contracts. But prolonged stress is logistics. Tankers must roll, terminals must pump, roads must be safe. All of it loops back to power. During a long hit, the cascade tightens. Water pressure ebbs, cooling margins shrink. Backups warm, fuel queues lengthen, telecom coverage fragments, then tears. Each sector strains the next. Resilience lives in the seams. Microgrids island hospitals. Microgrids island switch rooms. Water plants prioritize one feed. Pipelines stage local generators. Data centers shed non-critical loads. Rail and airports fall to manual plans. It's not perfect, but it slows the fall. And at street level, the meaning is simple. Elevators stop between floors. Refrigerated meds edge toward unsafe. Dialysis schedules slip. ATMs blink out. We text. Then try to call, then just wait. Power is not a sector. It is the bloodstream. When it falters, the organs feel it, one after another, until we restore flow, link by link, light by careful light. Pages turn. Headlines fade up from another century. 1859, the Carrington event, a white-hot flare across a Victorian sky. Telegraph lines spark. Operators shocked. Paper catches fire. In a world before grids, geomagnetic currents still found metal and made it sing. The lesson? The sun can reach through space and touch infrastructure. Scale is not theory, it is precedent. Auroras over North America, auroras over Europe. March 1989, Hydro-Quebec. A A storm rolls in. In 90 seconds, the grid folds. Geomagnetically induced currents saturate transformers. Protective relays trip. 6 million in the dark. Icy towers like sculptures in blue dawn. Operators stabilize. Black start units crank. By the next day, lights return. The lesson? Fast collapse. Recovery requires practice plans and components that can endure slow DC on AC machines. Newspapers flip. 2003, the Halloween storms. Transformers in South Africa overheat and fail. Long lines act like antennas. Damage lasts months. The lesson? Low-latitude systems are not immune. Heat and harmonics matter. Map, 2003. Northeast blackout, trees, alarms missed. A software bug. Human overload, 50 million out. Map, 2012 India. A massive stage collapse. The common thread? Complexity couples everything. Small errors ripple. Reserves and discipline are lifelines. Control rooms, coffee cups, focused eyes. What do we carry forward? Watch the sky. Real-time space weather feeds integrated into dispatch. Harden the backbone. GIC monitors, neutral grounding resistors, series capacitors where prudent. Thermal headroom on critical transformers. Segment fast. Islanding schemes that trip cleanly and rejoin safely. Drill black start. Not on paper, on steel. Cross-utility, cross-border. Stock the irreplaceable. Spare transformers. Bushings, rectifiers. Contracts that move heavy parts when roads are thin. Protect with intent. Under-voltage load shedding. Under-frequency load shedding. Tuned, tested, and trusted. Share signal, power, telecom, water, fuel, joint playbooks, and common operating pictures. Train for fog. Alarms will flood, humans must filter. Simulators that include space weather and cascading stress. Final long exposure of city lights. Fragile, resilient. History is a guide, if we choose to read it. Dissolve from headlines to golden hour rooftops. Panels tilt toward a quiet sun. Batteries rest behind fences. Switchgear blinks like a heartbeat. On a campus, the power plant is now a brain. Solar feeds a battery. A combined heat and power unit hums. When the wider grid stumbles, breakers open in milliseconds. Classrooms dim but stay on. Labs hold temperature. Freezers protect research. Freezers protect vaccines. The lesson applied: island fast. Carry essentials. Rejoin cleanly when it's safe. Cut to a hospital district. Red lines on the floor lead to lighted halls while the city beyond is dark. Operating rooms never blink. Elevators answer. Boiler controls stay stable. A microgrid controller moves like a conductor. Solar by day. Batteries bridging. Generators sparingly and cleanly. Controllable loads shed quietly. Parking decks. Non-critical HVAC. Decorative lighting. Care doesn't pause. Fade to a rural co-op. Long feeder lines. Big sky. Poles stretch to a horizon where storms build. Here, resilience is geometry. Cluster resources near people. A modest battery at the substation. A few community-scale solar arrays. Dispatchable ag pumps and grain dryers timed to sun and price. When ice pulls lines down 10 miles away, the town center islands. The grocery stays cold. The clinic stays bright. The well pumps run. A radio room links crews and neighbors. Equity is design. Credits for low-income households to join. Priority circuits for elder care. Cooling and heating shelters in schools. Dissolve to an islanded village. Micro-turbines sip local fuel. Solar soaks the afternoon. Streetlights pulse gently after sunset. Then taper to save energy while homes keep essentials. The control screen is simple. State of charge, community load, weather on the way. Reliability is local knowledge paired with automation. Back to neighborhoods. EVs nose into bidirectional chargers. During an outage, they become short-term batteries for the block. Water heaters respond. Pool pumps respond. Thermostats respond. Shaving peaks without notice in kitchens and living rooms. A community center glows. Refrigeration for medicines. Outlets for phones. Cots in the gym. Wi-Fi and local radio carrying updates. Outside, the skyline is dark. Within the island, the lights feel steady, humane. This is not theory. It's a pattern: solar plus storage, flexible loads, smart protection, practice drills, shared benefits. Microgrids don't replace the grid. They make it kinder under stress. Built piece by piece, they turn fragile links into local strength and keep the most important promises when the storm finally arrives. Voiceover. Dissolve to a substation at dusk. Steel quiet against a fading sky, a hum like held breath. Protect. In cabinets, copper and silicon stand guard. Surge resistors take the hit so breakers don't. GIC blocking devices steer slow geomagnetic currents away from transformer hearts. Transformers built with margin, bigger cores, better cooling, high-temp insulation, so heat is time, not failure. Lines shortened by design, more sectionalizing, more local loops, less wire to catch the storm. Lightning arresters stud the skyline like small sentries. Grounds tested, bonded, proven, detect. Overlay a faint HUD, the sun's live data feeds, solar wind speeds, KP rising. In relay rooms, PMUs watch angles and frequency at millisecond scale. Micro PMUs on feeders see the flicker of trouble. Harmonics, reverse power, voltage sags. Line sensors wink on crossarms, counting ice, catching gallop. Anomalies surface as gentle signals on glass walls. Operators lean in, earlier than before. Respond, trip logic trimmed to essentials. Fast, selective, not panicked. Faults cleared in cycles, healthy branches spared. Graceful I-landing on cue. Breakers open cleanly. Inverters hold voltage and phase. Loads rank themselves. Life first, comfort later. Microgrids assume posture. Solar, battery, CHP, frequency droop sharing the weight without argument. Black start rehearsed. Quiet spin-ups. Staged reconnection. A map lit one pocket at a time. Recover. Dissolve to screens with islands breathing steady. Restitch the quilt. Synchronize edges. Align phase, close ties. Prioritize corridors of care. Hospitals. Water. Communications. Refrigeration for food and medicine. Then transit. Then commerce. Then comfort. Document the storm's lessons while they're still warm. Tune settings. Replace the tired. Train again. Cut through daylight tonight and back. Operators, linemen, code in a controller. The playbook lives because it's practiced. Return to the substation. The hum is a promise kept. Resilience is built before the storm.